It's like you're trying to build Google Sheets or Airtable from your first MVP. Do we converge off of conflict? Does it get better, the relationship, or does it get worse?
Anybody can get something to like 80% of the way, and it's the next 20% that actually takes just as much time, if not longer.
And I think for any product that has been called great, people did spend a lot of time. I think about Notion, who would have known that Notion? The guy went to Japan for like 2 years just to go build it. What makes a good product is not the idea, it's all the little things that go to it. It's 100 and 1,000 little things.
This is Produced With. Honest conversations about how great work gets made and the cost of doing it right. And before we get started, we're really into the analytics and we notice a lot of you are watching but aren't subscribed. Please consider to like, subscribe so that you can actually keep up with the show. Simon, thank you so much for hopping on the pod. For those that don't know you, you're like the Wizard of Oz of saturation, I feel like. Yeah. The real brains behind the operation. For those that don't know, Simon is our CTO and co-founder of Saturation. And I thought it'd be fun to start the pod with us having a conversation and getting to know us a little bit as the founders of Saturation. So welcome to the pod, Simon.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be on camera for the first time.
Yeah. How Simon and I met, I think it's been like 4 years now, is I got introduced to you as a film investor.
Yeah,
funny enough, it wasn't even like a tech person or entrepreneur or anything like that. But that you were looking to get into film, and somebody introduced us, and we were working on a project in Seattle at the time. Yeah. And it was funny because we were getting ready to, I think, pitch you a project, and I was like, wait a minute, don't invest in this project. Instead, I've got this idea that I've been like trying to get off the ground, and that's really kind of how we clicked and started moving forward. So it's really fun to kind of see where we've come and been through since. But
just a little bit of background about me. Like, I've been in the software industry for about 20 years. It's ranged from all the way from working at Microsoft to working at Splunk to working at Yahoo. So very wide range of different types of products. And, across my whole journey of just being in the tech industry, one thing I realized about myself is that I really love storytelling. So during that time, on the side hobby, I would pick up a camera, just do little internal team videos, just try to tell a story behind like what's happening behind like the magic. And, after 20 years in tech, you're kind of like, well, maybe I can try to do something else. There's some itch in me that was just, hey, I just want to tell stories and I want to be able to, give back to sort of give a different lens to what, maybe people don't always get to see behind the scenes. And so, when I met you guys, I was just like really looking to get involved with film. Didn't know a soul. Most of people I know are in tech. Most of us in tech don't know anyone in film. And so I thought it was just going to be really cool. Just, hey, I could talk to some really cool people like filmmakers, people who really just, do it for the passion. A lot of them are. And that really spoke to me. And so when I met you guys, it was really the first filmmakers I met. It's like, it wasn't even like, I didn't even have to try hard to go find anyone. I just, a friend introduced you guys, and then I was just like, wow, this is really cool. And long story short, here we are,
I remember you telling me once, but I think it'd be so fun to share. You kind of even dabbled a little bit around like video, like maybe with like a camera. Like I think you did like a commercial or something for the company you were working on.
Yeah. So this was the time when the mirrorless cameras were like really taking a steam, like the Sony FX 3-line, FX6, or even the Sony AS2, where anyone could just pick up a camera and get really good quality. And so for me, it was just like, everyone's like, wow, you are willing to use a camera rather than just code. So why don't you just help us do all this stuff for free and then make all these videos? And it's funny enough, like even now that I've gone through this journey a lot longer with Saturation, like I was actually like looking at even some of the people's work now that now are like interfacing with Saturation. So people like Noam Kroll, who has like, he was building like some color grading stuff, which I thought was really cool. And I was like, oh, that's a really cool thing to try to integrate into camera workflow. But what really attracted me to like just video making was it was the technical part. Two, it was also crafting the story and where you can really just bring out the emotions. I think with like tech, a lot of it is purely based off logic and a lot of just, logical thinking and maybe systems planning and systems thinking. But I think as people, we really enjoy emotions and storytelling and connecting to higher level ideas. And I think that video making really helped me connect with that aspect of me. And funny enough, is like I picked up the camera and I got just invited to do wedding shoots, and weirdly enough, and people seemed to like the work, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can actually kind of do this for real.
That's awesome. I didn't even know you did the wedding stuff. That's awesome. Everybody kind of has like some start in a wedding or like,
Yeah,
or two, yeah. And even before that, you used to actually even work for Maya.
Yeah, so that was my first job. I had an internship with at the time the company was called Alias Wavefront. That was the year they won the Oscar, and so that was actually my first experience holding the Oscar, which is surprisingly really heavy. Like I didn't think that. I thought it was just gonna be like some cheap like plastic thing, but it was like real heavy with weight and like I don't know, felt like gold a little bit, and it was cool to take a photo with it.
To demystify a little bit of like the tech, maybe our audience isn't as knowledgeable in that area. What does tech look like for you? Like, what are the things that you're involved with that you've done in the past when you say you come from the tech industry?
I mean, it's ranged from a lot. So my first job was in 3D graphics, which was with Maya and Alias Wavefront and all that. And then I went into other more internships where I tackle Linux operating systems. So we built like a distribution for Linux. So that was really cool. And then I ended up working at Expedia, which did like web flight search and did the whole back end kind of flight searching stuff. And then I ended up working on Microsoft, which was working on compilers. And so all the C#, that was actually when C#, this is going to date me, but like C# 3.0 was coming out. And so, and that was like really learning programming languages and just building the guts behind programming languages. And then, after that, like when I started my career more full, it became much more about, obviously the web was taking off and then mobile was taking off. And so really worked at Yahoo where I did a lot of the ads stuff behind the scenes. And then we did mobile apps for Yahoo when Marissa Mayer was trying to like scale up the mobile strategy. And then it went from Splunk, which was big data, data logs, engineering logs, all that kind of stuff. And so I guess my career has crossed the whole spectrum of different areas in tech. And it was just, I don't know, maybe part of me is just I just really like doing different things, and I really like trying different things. And so that's been probably the most fun part.
And within that somewhere too, if I recall, you also have worked with big companies like you're mentioning, and also have started startups in the past too, right?
Yeah. So actually, before Yahoo, did a startup that eventually got acquired by Yahoo. But there's such a difference between working at a startup versus big company, and just seeing the whole spectrum of the different types of how do you be effective in each avenue. I think when you start going from like a small company with maybe like 4 or 5 people to like hundreds of people, the scale is obviously very different. The kinds of problems you solve are very different. The types of how to be effective in each environment is very different. And it was just really cool to have that whole experience from almost like nothing, like 2 or 3 people, to all the way to like hundreds of people, where you're now like managing bigger teams, where you're kind of dealing with getting buy-in and all that kind of stuff.
Wow. And what happened to that startup?
We got acquired by Yahoo, so we had a decent exit across the board. Awesome. And so, that was just like our first thing. I know with startups, it's always like hit or miss sometimes. There's like what they say, the stat is like 90% of startups fail. It's very hard to like get anything off the ground and then actually carry momentum on it. And for us, it was just, I think we were at a right time, right spot. Very, very, very fortunate in terms of the timing of everything, and end up finding ourselves at Yahoo to really help with one of their latest strategies during that time.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I think about this a lot, especially with what we have to go through. And if everybody saw just like what it takes to like get a startup going and to maintain and grow, it really is like, you have to be a little bit insane.
I do agree with that. You have to be a little bit crazy. I think you do way more work for less pay. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Less or no pay, for a long period of time. And it's one of the things that I love about our relationship is that like we're both a little bit crazy to even be like doing something like this.
Yeah.
Like where does that come from for you? Like what can you define your crazy?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question. I never thought of myself as crazy, always because I'm just me. I'm just like normal, I think, to myself,
Right.
hopefully.
Yeah, we all think we're normal to
We all think we're
ourselves.
normal, but then maybe to other people, it might look crazy. But I think it's, for me, what really boils down to is, do you see something of value? And can you find that value that's not just defined by what's maybe common? There's always like, it's very obvious when something is valuable, like once it actually makes it big. But I think part of it is seeing beyond that, and seeing, hey, what are we really trying to build here? What are we trying to do here? Who are the people we're working with? And if as a startup, I think asking those questions before you even embark on any startup is very valuable, because you're going to hit roadblocks. You're going to think you're going to have a lot of doubt. People are going to say, oh, your thing is not good. It's not going to be worth it. People that you thought might be allies might turn into people that just like totally don't, come on board. And so things that people that you think that might be supportive might not be, or people that you didn't think were supportive become very supportive. And so you just don't know what's going to happen. But I think there's a part of it. I think a lot about like Elon, who really went against the grain about building Tesla, where everyone used to say, hey, electric cars are kind of a dead end. you know, no one's going to use it. No one's going to buy it. It's too expensive. But at the end of the day, Elon saw something valuable there. He saw something beyond maybe what everyone was saying. And I think that part of it, it's learning how to hold on to that conviction, really just trying to understand, but not being too crazy about it, how to test that idea a little bit too. I think we personally, between us, we tested that idea a lot. We had to go through so many iterations. We kind of brought it in front of customers, trying to see what's crazy. And the data doesn't lie. Sometimes it just shows you the signals. Sometimes the signals might not be what you expect, but there are positive signals and there are negative signals. And I think having a very systematic approach to it really helps alleviate the craziness, quote unquote, of the whole process, right? Because I'm pretty sure for us, we've found like times where, hey, is this even going to work? We're just throwing a platform out there.
Right. Yeah.
We're just throwing like, oh, are we going to do this page? Is anyone going to like it? We throw it out there and we're just like, oh, but then people are using it. Some people don't. Some people have objections. And then some people are like, wow, I really love this and I see potential here. And I think that's exciting. That's part of being human. It's like, we're connecting on something very fundamental and valuable. And that's part of the discovery process. And personally, I think it's like similar to storytelling. You write a story, you never know how people are going to receive it. You might be crazy with your thoughts. You put a movie out there, no one's ever really going to, maybe it's going to go viral, maybe it's not. But it is meaningful to you. And so you do it. And so I think that's kind of how I see life a little bit.
Oh, it's so true. This is definitely my first kind of more formal foray into like a tech startup, but I tell people all the time that even within film, like every project feels like its own startup.
Yes.
And it's pulling on very similar muscles to how we think about like, building a product from an idea is the same as like building a script or building a production out of an idea in film too. So it pulls on. So I feel like in some ways, like I feel like I'm a serial startup founder just because I've done like so many different projects.
And I think filmmaking, just how you said, is like it's very similar to startups. It's just you're forged through fire. There's so much things that can happen. It's kind of crazy. You're doing something possibly out of passion.
Yeah, most of the time it starts with passion. Like you're not doing it because you have a job necessarily, unless you're in a studio head position. But most people are, like it's a passion project.
Yeah, no, hear you.
It's crazy to think sometimes of like how much perseverance, grit. And I love what you said about conviction, because it's almost like, especially if it's a passion and you're not making money off of it. Maybe money is one way to be accountable to something, but conviction really does come down to the core of like the why of what you're doing. And if you can't hold on to that, then it's like, what's the point? You could be spending your time elsewhere or with your family or whatever it might be. What was kind of like some of your stronger convictions around saturation? Like when we first started talking about the idea, like what I guess keeps you today passionate about it? What's the convictions there?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Let me just kind of reflect on the pitch that you gave me during that time.
Yeah. Walk us back through.
Yeah, because I remember I was pretty convinced, like pretty fast, like weirdly enough, like it wasn't like I had like too much objection to what you were pitching. And that was actually usually very surprising, because usually I'm very, I guess, critical about certain
Critical about it.
pitches. I get
Yeah.
pitches all the time, and like,
Right.
yeah, I would just love to kind of walk through sort of like what you pitched to me, and maybe that might help shed some light for the audience of like
Yeah.
what at least I saw during that time. And at the end of the day, I think you just showed me how big of a problem the industry had in terms of managing money. It was like you're using outdated tools. It's not collaborative. It's not. People just can't get on the same page. You're always losing track of things. You're doing a lot of insecure practices, like, hey, I'm gonna just Photoshop my ID onto this paper and just send it over, or I'm just gonna give you an envelope of cash, to kind of fuel like this payment. And coming from the tech industry, you're like, whoa, like you guys actually do all this stuff. And so to me, there was such a natural evolution of, because being in tech so long, we've seen the Figmas come about, we've seen the, Frame.io, even like in the film industry, we've seen like Airtable, we've seen like Google Sheets, like what they brought to kind of the workflows of people. And, the way you kind of just painted the picture of the industry, where it is in many ways backwards and using, certain tech. So there is a real opportunity here. There's a real value that can be brought here. And it's not even just like a value of business. It's really helping people become better with money, more transparent with money, more collaborative with money. Like at the end of the day, I think as people, we really like to work together, really work as teams, really help support one another when it's like a good place, to work at. And I think what we're doing with Saturation really helps bring people on the same page for something so mundane like finances. I know, like for you, you've always said like, hey, I hated being an accountant, and part of your pain was, just even managing all this financial stuff. And I think for me, it was really seeing the opportunity that we can really bring people together and work on finances in a way that really just hasn't been done before.
No, it's really cool to hear. And also, there's different ways that I guess people can build conviction. Like for me, I was going through the problem. And so obviously it's easier to be convicted of something when you yourself are like going through the trenches of something, and you see all your friends and your colleagues going through it. But for you, you got to build conviction from the story and from the pitch, and like being able to even like firsthand see it. One of the things that I really appreciated about like the early days of Saturation, and particularly when we first met, there's obviously a beauty and attention about like co-founder relationships.
Right.
Like great businesses often like need really great co-founder relationships. They say one of the biggest reasons for why a startup fails is because of co-founder conflict and like issues around like, and especially when you're just meeting somebody, you don't know. I mean, everybody seems nice, on day one, and everything's great. And it's not until like, for lack of a better term, shit hits the fan that like, that's when like real character and like
the real test of a relationship
comes out. And one of the things that I appreciated about how we decided to go about that was because I think that we cared about that independently. And it wasn't like just in the excitement, get married right away and go to Vegas and put a ring on it.
It took a while, actually.
It did take a while. I think we were almost like in this, like what I would call dating phase for like 6 to 8 months before we really like hopped into that. What does that look like for you when you're like thinking about something like this? You've obviously done a startup before. Like, talk about the dating in your perspective. I'd love to hear like how that conviction built.
I think part of like the lessons learned is because both of us have done like startups with, or like tried to do things with different people and different relationships. And obviously sometimes things don't work out, for whatever reason. And I think part of like, even my cautious with like, even just the 6 to 8 months that you were referring to is born from that experience, like, hey, are there people like it's not good to just rush and jump into something like a startup with someone, because it does, as you know, it takes a lot of like work, a lot of pivots, a lot of problems that come up, even like tensions in relationships or tensions in product, tensions in markets. And I think for me, what I've learned, at least through my experience, about when to jump in with a co-founder or when to jump in with something as significant as a startup is really you have to look for a few things, in my opinion. Is number one, is there an alignment in values? So that's the first step. It's do you guys actually want the same thing? you know,
Mm.
so it's very important. And so, like, just to give an example for you, like, I know you really love to build a great product. Like, you wanted to build a product that stood out. Like, it was even like aesthetic, user friendly, all that. I felt the same way. Like,
Yeah.
I think working in tech, I don't think people understand how rare that is. As engineers, it's actually very uncommon to really care about user experiences. And I'm pretty sure your experience with engineers, you start realizing that many engineers don't really care for the UX. They actually care about more of the system, the beauty of the code, the beauty of efficiency of the code and all that. But in terms of building something that really speaks aesthetically and speaks, that's well put together, that doesn't happen. I'm pretty sure it's more common in filmmaking where craft matters. But when you're building product for function, it doesn't always come about. Maybe Apple's a better example of someone that cares about form over function sometimes too. But like, other companies don't, right? And so it's very hit or miss on that front. And so me, that was one value. It was that we really cared that we wanted to build a great product. And there was totally evidence that we could actually do it. That was number one. And I think the second value, like on top of the product kind of thing, was how are we as people? I think one of the things that kill, especially a lot of relationships in startup, is ego. At the end of the day, people get their own opinions about things. They kind of dig their heels in to their viewpoints, to all that. And I was looking for flexibility in thought, for lack of a better word, right? It's we can easily go into many arguments, 100 arguments, 1,000 arguments, but if we can't converge on like an actual aligned decision or vision, I don't think it's gonna work out that easily, or it's gonna come with a lot of pain.
So true, yeah.
And so that was number two. It's where was the flexibility? It's like you have to be flexible, but not overtly flexible. In the sense, you still have to have your own opinion, you still have to have your own things, but do you have enough give when you have a strong opinion to kind of consider other viewpoints, to kind of work together for that? And that was very important for me.
Yeah.
And so it's really this kind of idea of how much ego is someone carrying across this relationship versus not. And I mean, I don't think you can evaluate that overnight. I think that takes like time, testing,
takes conflict, takes the tests. Yeah.
And that was the third thing. Like, and you brought it straight up. How do people deal with conflict? It's do we converge off of conflict? Does it get better, the relationship, or does it get worse?
Right.
Or do people just start like moving forward away? And I think for me, that third piece of conflict, and we had our conflicts, let's be real, on the front. And so it was something that was put to the test. And I think for me, it was very comforting to see that we can work through certain like fundamental conflicts and then move on to the next layer of conflicts or the next level of other things that we have to work through.
Totally.
And I think if those three were pretty much my anchors, and so far so good. I
love that. Yeah, I totally agree with you. That it's cool to hear, because I don't think we've like just outwardly talked about it before, but that definitely is some of the core kind of pillars. If somebody else is like starting a startup, like we would definitely recommend like that be like the at least put those three somewhere in the up in the core part of your principles. But kind of principle thought is an important one. Some people might just hop in because they see opportunity in the other person to kind of like progress the startup or whatever forward. And in a weird way, like it almost feels like tech culture really feeds on moving quickly.
Yes.
And, like at all costs, just move fast, get to the first thing and fail fast and all that stuff. But this is one of those things that if you fail fast at this, it may not necessarily be a good thing.
I mean, we're dealing with finances, you fail fast on like someone in $1 million production and then, sorry,
Totally agree. It is hard to find somebody that equally or maybe even more cares about it than you do. Yep. And I think that's what I'm always like looking for is like the bar is me. And if this other person can at least match that energy and or like exceed it, then it feels like a progressive type of like relationship to care about the same thing. And particularly, like you're saying, like I've had a couple failed starts at the tech side of things. And a lot of it did really have a lot to do with co-founder mismatch or developer mismatch, or like, I try to take the easy way out where I try to just hire developers and, just to go make an app or to go make the thing or hire an agency just to take care of it, realizing that I was losing a lot of the care, the passion, the actual pouring into it was just a work for hire type thing, which, sometimes can change the dynamic of it. But meeting you and seeing how much you cared about the little things, where this button went, what color it is, what shade it is, it sounds so stupid, but that is sometimes what we argue about. And
it's true. It's true. We're I don't like this text thing.
I don't like the spacing of this text. I don't know how many arguments we've had around that, which is so funny because it's birthed out of deep care. It's not. It's not out of, sometimes arguments are really out of just great divide or great odds. But I've noticed that and this is an example of a great co-founder relationship for me, is that the argument is coming out of deep care. You believe the best way forward for this is your thought. I might believe the best way forward is through my thought. And I think we both see that in each other, that it's not you against me or an ego, my idea is better than yours. And then the best one, hopefully prevails in that. And it's an iron sharpening iron more than it is a enemy, frenemy type of or
I'm right, you're wrong kind of thing.
Yeah. So very grateful for that. I'm glad that you touched on that, because I think it's very evident in our baby. How much we care about that, being at the forefront of it, which is special. And I didn't realize how till you said it, how anomalous that is in the tech industry, because you just think it's hand in hand in the tech industry. In the same way that maybe in the film industry, good cinematography or good art direction or good
that's a really good metaphor.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not, and yet that's when you can tell. Sometimes poor films versus good films, even, right? Some of the even surfaced part of it.
Yeah, I think film people would understand this really well, just because there is a certain craftsmanship to film, and you could tell when something's maybe just mass produced, or for business or for money, versus something that actually speaks at a level of depth. That's just, and there's a care to craft, and it's funny because we say that, hey, we argue about buttons, but I feel like you guys do the same thing. You might argue about how much timing this trim is. Oh, which trim is half a second, or the slants that's off or something, and then people will be arguing about that ad infinitum, and no one, probably the end audience, won't even know it explicitly, but they will perceive the quality and the care.
Oh, it's so funny that you say that. I was on a film once, and the DP was arguing with us around painting the walls a certain color so that the lighting bounces off in it was just so profound to me that that's what we were arguing about, because, and it's not that we didn't want to do it. It's just, it's always a time versus money, conversation that you're having. It's if the world was our oyster and we could do everything in an instant and, be there, absolutely. But then sometimes you're fighting over these really small things that maybe materially feels like it wouldn't make a difference to the end user end result, but it does. The entire experience is really a culmination of all the little decisions that you're making.
It's very true. Yeah, I think it's hard to kind of explain that what makes a good product is not the idea; it's all the little things that go to it, and 100%. It's 100 and 1,000 little things that people will probably, when you point it out, it's obvious in hindsight. Yeah. But when you're actually going through the process, you just don't know, and sometimes you just might be blinded by your own sense of it. But once you put it to the test for people, it's always this shaping of these little things that kind of create and make something sing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think a good analogy is even music. If someone's singing, there's a difference between someone on tune versus off tune. It can just be subtle variations in pitch. It can be subtle variations in rhythm. It can be subtle variations.
You're more easier to call out when you know it's bad versus when it's good. It's almost in the background sometimes, or and then when it's great, you obviously notice too. But everybody, or to some degree, I think can notice degrade in quality, in terms of an off-pitched person, or
Yeah, like a good edit is something that no one notices.
No
Right?
one knows this.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
It's so true. Like, and sometimes that's the battle that it's funny because if this is our canvas and our art, like we are hoping nobody
yeah,
notices because the UX is so good or the UI
yeah,
is very, very clean and hopefully
yeah,
it's intuitive enough that they don't need to talk to us about it
yeah.
to just use it. Did you have that like growing up, or like if you're talking about like maybe even pre like work and startups, like did you just care about like these kind of things at a very young age, or was that like developed, or like
Yeah, that's a good question.
where does that stem from for Simon?
Oh my gosh, I have to think about this one because I don't actually know. I feel like I've always cared when I cared. I don't always care about everything. So you'll notice in my own
Mm,
personal life, it's like some things I just don't care about. I leave a lot of details uncared for. I'm like very
sure,
bad at certain things and not to out me out of my own personal life, but
sure, yeah,
I'm sure my wife will tell me I'm very bad at a lot of things.
right,
So,
same.
but I think for certain things, very specific things where I do care a lot about. And yeah, I'm now kind of think like now that you're asking me this question is reflecting on. Um, I think I've always had a care for good story.
Yeah,
It's like weird. Like I know I said like I did start like I felt storytelling like maybe in like later in my work, but I felt like that seed has always been planted when I was young. It's just like this idea of good craftsmanship and to express something that is real to me, um,
mm,
and really refining that process of what's real to me. And then eventually that turned into code and math. Took a
right,
pivot, and when I became a teenager, where I just started really liking math and computer science and coding, and that kind of passion switched over to that, where you really want to care about the craft and care about those details. But I don't think it's unique to me. I think it's in everyone. I think we just sometimes
mm,
get distracted by what people say is important. Um,
mm,
I think this like embedded in a lot of us is this care for craft. Like just think about anything that we do, right? Like it could be someone playing music or someone playing a sport, someone
or cooking, or
cooking. Yeah,
yeah, like designing furniture, or yeah, building something. It's so true.
yeah.
I,
Like
I
there's
feel that very innately. Like I feel like creating has always been in me, and
yep,
it's taken many different shapes and forms like throughout my life. And most prominent like was my film part of the background, and now it's tech, and maybe
yeah,
one day it'll be, I don't know, making a shampoo or
yeah,
something
yeah,
like that. Like who knows? Like I try not to get so stuck into what it is, but I
yep,
enjoy the creation process, like
yes, yeah,
the creating something out of nothing.
yep,
Um, where does that come from? Is it like a perfectionism tick, or is it a but I just feel
yeah,
like, and we talk about this a lot internally, and we talk about it in film a lot too, that sometimes anybody can get something to like 80% of the way,
yes, yeah,
and sometimes that 80% might be quick, and it's the next 20% that actually takes just
yep.
as much time, if not longer. And most people probably stop at that 80,
Yep.
85, 90.
And it's funny, that's actually traditional advice too. Some people just tell you to stop at 80% because it's
Right.
not worth your
Yeah.
effort to do
Like it's
the
good
last
enough.
80% of the stuff. Um, I'm like 50-50, depends what you're trying to do on that advice. Personally, like you bring up a really good point was, is that 80% really worth it for the
Yeah.
last 20%? Is that 80% effort worth the 20%, the last 20%? And I think for any product that has been called great, or any product that has been called or any not even product, anything that has been called great, people did spend a lot of time. Think about Apple. What did they do? You know, they really spent a lot of time fine tuning that craft for
Yes.
their phone, for everything. And um, I don't know. I feel like you lose something about some truth about like something when you just neglect the last 20%.
Even in film, there's like this notion of like, you could just keep editing, or you could just keep
Yeah.
like changing it or perfecting it or whatever. And at some point, there's this like stopping point. And
Yeah.
whether that's because of like time, money, resource, or whatever, there is this finite
Yeah.
like kind of place where you need to stop it and then release it into the world. I always love trying to like understand like what is that for everybody, like, and
Mhm.
like, you know,
Yeah.
what kind of makes you feel. And if I look back at even some of my work, I look back at it always in hindsight as like it wasn't all the way there. Like I think I always leave it at that it was 95 or 96% or whatever it is. Like it wasn't maybe like the full 100, because the full 100 to me is conceptually never there. Like, because it can always be iterated on, or it could always be worked on, and it could always be updated or fixed or whatever it might be. And in film, the unfortunate part is like, once you release, that's it. Mm-hmm. In tech, it's actually, that's just the beginning. And the iteration.
Yeah, that's actually a good contrast. Yeah.
The iteration.
We talked about this before.
Yeah, the iteration is public. And it's been kind of like a beautiful and also like scary approach to it, because like my perfectionism mindset from like, I think what I've learned in film just kind of like, tells me like, once you release it, it has to be like,
you only got one shot.
Yeah. And in tech, that's a balance. Is there something like in the tech industry that like are principles or guidelines around that, or is it a gut feel, or how do you kind of think about something when you think about like that 80% or the 20%?
That's
like
a good question. My advice would probably go against a lot of tech people's advice on this.
I love it. Yeah.
Because, I don't know, maybe. So I'll give you an example. Like for saturation, we released dark mode straight up, like right from the beginning. Yeah. And we made sure that we built it in such a way that it was highly live collab, and all that. And just to kind of paint a picture of the technical details, it's like you're trying to build Google Sheets or Airtable from your first MVP. And that's not always wise in like when you're doing a startup, because you don't even know if you have product market fit. You don't know if this product is actually going to be valuable to the business and all that stuff. So a lot of standard tech advice is just get it out there, iterate, evolve, get it fast, right? But part of that, I think, stems from it's kind of the admission that you just don't know, right? What's actually valuable. You don't know that what you're actually doing is valuable to the market or to the person. But if you develop a conviction that this is really valuable, and you start testing it in small, subtle ways, maybe by talking to people, maybe by cross-referencing it with your own experience, to kind of shop it around, just to kind of understand, like, is this something valuable? Yeah. You can commit hard on something that is genuinely very hard. So I think about Notion, who would have known that Notion? The guy went to Japan for like 2 years just to go build it. He pivoted off his own startup because that one wasn't working. And then he just went to Japan to kind of just create something hard again and kind of bring in a new paradigm. And I think for things that actually that are paradigm shifting in some ways do take a little bit more effort up front, personally. And I think you also have enough experience to know that if you built it one way, let's just say we built it to be more typical SaaS, like where, you got APIs, you got CRUD operations, it does like a server client kind of communication. That architecture would not work for something that we're trying to build. Even though it's easier, even though there's standard patterns, even though we could bootstrap probably in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We needed to build something that worked offline a little bit or semi-offline. We needed to build something that felt like people can work in their space together. It had to feel highly interactive. We knew that that's what we wanted. We knew that we were competing with the desktop apps, not web apps like Movie Magic. And we knew we needed to build a beautiful interface to even stand out and build contrast from like something like Movie Magic.
Right.
And so that was, I think, the stem of the conviction of, I think we got to spend 80% of the effort in these 20% hard pieces. And so to me, to answer your question more clearly, I think it boils down to really, what are your values? How convicted are you of your values? And then go from there. If you're not that convicted, or you feel like you're still testing, build fast, release it out there, iterate. Don't worry about perfectionism. It doesn't care what people, you can iterate with tech. I think you can release it out there. You can kind of iterate. You can kind of do that. But if you have conviction, you should spend the effort and the craftsmanship on it, because that is what speaks to your conviction the most.
Yes. Because it could easily become like, if you're not convicted, it could easily become a job. And I think that's maybe where people maybe get into like complacency around like, it's good enough, or like, that like, but if you think it's going to be this bigger thing, or it's going to be this idea that actually, it's sometimes it's hard to build conviction just out of money, that it's going to make me a lot of money, can only take you so far in terms of a conviction. It is a conviction point, but it can only take you so far sometimes. Like when you think of like some of the, greatest builders of our time, like even like we referenced earlier, Elon Musk. I mean, this man wants to get people onto Mars. He's already the richest man in the world, and yet he's got like such a conviction that like we should be a multi-planetary species, and all of his businesses somehow. Have you seen like this like if you like lay out all of Elon's companies, they look like individually just like really great companies, but they actually are all just serving the purpose of like
getting to
operating
Mars.
on Mars.
Where
it's like you need a boring company to build and dig tunnels or dig through Mars. You need solar, because obviously you're not going to like be able to produce energy in any other way. You need electricity and EV like related, or AI to like go build the things. And so it's funny how like he's kind of commertized maybe what actually was his bigger conviction, and he's kind of just spun him out into different companies. And it's like really like just profound to see like that's what drives this man. Like he's thinking about it at a level that, like, to your point, like some might laugh or some might think is not possible or think that it's a joke, but that kind of crazy conviction is actually what's moving the needle forward.
And it shows, like, he plunges his net worth every time he starts a new company. He like made a bunch of money on PayPal and then just plunges his money again, like to the next company that he did, to SpaceX. He does it for the long term, for 5 to 10 years. He could be losing money left and right, everything that he's built. And then he still does it again and again and again. And it shows his conviction is like really there, too.
What I love about his conviction, as well as his conviction in himself, or confidence in himself as a builder and an engineer, is I remember early on, like Tesla had, I think, open sourced some of the like battery technology or something like that out into the world. And his whole thing was, if somebody can build it better, they should.
Yeah.
And I love that. Like, it could sound arrogant, but I feel like we have like a similar, not that we have like a bunch of open source stuff, but like there's this thing that like is constantly like, oh, there's this competitor coming up, or there's this thing coming up. It's like, good. Like, there needs to be innovation in this space. Like, and it's actually what like is pushing the, like, the industry forward. How do you think about that? Like, from like, we've been talking about conviction from a product standpoint for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
And part of us as co-founders is that we have to think about it from a business side
that's
as
right.
well, right? Like, and trying to like, how do you think about it from like a business side of releasing something, like, taking it from an idea or product and getting it out there? Like, do you have like strong convictions on the business side of things?
I guess what aspects, like, I mean, business is so broad in terms of like what we can type.
Yeah, like I would say like it's kind of like, I don't know, I've always been very against this notion of like build it and they'll come. It's like build it and then show it, demo it, sell it, market it, and then they'll come is more accurate, or and there's I would even say that like a fourth pillar to me in our co-founder relationship and was just like this idea that like, and we have this as an ethos and even how we hire, and I love is this idea that you need to be a great executor and a great leader.
Right.
The great executor kind of speaks to the product side. The great leader speaks to the business side. A lot to me, right? And so, hopefully as we grow, it will look like that. Maybe there's even like people that we may not even like necessarily interact with on a day-to-day, but still need to keep the ethos of what we are doing,
building
our
a company and
what we're building. You're the CTO of Saturation. What all are you having to like be responsible for? Because it's not just like coding.
So, the idea about being a great executor and a great leader or thinker, That's so true. I mean, like, there's actually an interview with Steve Jobs on YouTube somewhere where he talks about, someone asked him like a very similar question where they asked him, oh, like, what do you look for in people you hire and all that stuff. And then he's like, there's some people that really great on ideas. They might think a lot and all that stuff. And then there's some people that are great in like just doing, maybe just getting the task done, getting to do all this stuff. And he basically said the best people he's ever worked with, or even the people he only hires, is that they can just do both. They have both the thinking and the doing all wrapped up in one, and that they're able to push the envelope forward and see the value and kind of move the needle. And it's so true. I mean, like, the results speak for themselves. Like, look at what Steve Jobs has done for, the world and industries and everything. And he's kind of pretty much revolutionized it. And I think that's so true. Like, just in our hiring on itself, like, we do want people that no work should be above them and no work should be below them. Like, if you think of it from that lens, it's like you got the whole spectrum now. It's like wrapped up in one. And from a startup, even just from a practical sense, it's cost efficient. Like I think for a business, you do have to think about, like, and then maybe to answer your question more, you do have to think about cost efficiency. So much of the model right now, if you have a lot, just throw money at the problem and maybe you'll just burn it and then you'll do this. But when you think about real sustainable businesses that actually outlast for a long trajectory, is they are actually pretty cost effective in how they approach things. And I think we've done a pretty good job trying to match that cost effectiveness. Is how do we build in such a way where it is cost effective. What did they say? There's like books about the $100 startup or like zero. There's always things about how do you stay, lean? How do you stay nimble? How do you stay, effective with such a small team? Is like David versus Goliath. You got a slingshot and you're trying to like make a dent in this like very massive market. And part of it is really cost effectiveness, getting the right people that can do both thinking and doing. Who show really good at no ego, like similar to co-founder relationships, is you have to really play on this no ego kind of theme. Is how open are they, and then how teachable they are, or how like adjustable they are in terms of how they operate. And I think all those qualities matter. Maybe like as a CTO, the way I see my role is, I think there's two aspects. There's a founder role and then there's a CTO role. So CTO is very easy to define. You just have the tech. I'm responsible for like the technological product. Maybe that crosses over into product from time to time. But at the end of the day, I am responsible for making sure that there is a backbone to what we're building. Right. And then even bringing in right technical talent and right technical advice across the board. And even setting technical direction and even recruiting. But then there's the founder side of me where I have to be like alongside with you. It's, how do we actually build a successful business? How do we build a successful product? Because it's so easy from being an engineer to think that the tech and the product is enough. It's such a common thing that's like, oh, the tech is the most valuable. How all the effort went into the tech, all the engineering, and I think that's actually a very misconception and a myth of actually what makes a great startup in a business. Because the truth is, it's everything. It is from the tech, it's from your sales, it's from your marketing, it's from how you guys operate as a company, how you guys lead, how you guys go to market, how you guys capture, market share. I don't know, like how you work with customers, the relationships, how do you pivot, how you adjust to product. There's just so many layers to it that I don't think it's hard to kind of encapsulate in just, blog post or an article. It's a very dynamic art. And I think filmmaking may be similar. You got all these functions across the board, and your guys are kind of come up with something complex, and simple at the same time. It's like weird. It's like a 2-hour movie, but it's like years of in the making. And so, and so to me, I see business as like a very similar thing. It's my role here is how do we make this one? First, how do we build the company so it doesn't just have it's not just like a one.
It's not just a product, it's a business.
It's a business, exactly. Yeah. Yes. So you don't look at it just like, oh, because we built such a great collaborative budgeting tool, that's it. You have to think about the evolution and think about the steps. So that's on the product side, right? So you're thinking about, oh, we went from budgeting, then we're going into payments, and then we're going into building a platform that people can really help supercharge their workflows. That is sort of like kind of like a bigger picture of how we can encapsulate a product, but it keeps going, right? Yeah. And it doesn't stop at this, the fact that we built a great collaborative budgeting software. there. On the business side, it's really also how do we build up the better marketing, build better messaging across the board? How do we really have users understand? How do we build communities? How do we leverage the resourcing we have? Because we are very under-resourced in some ways, And when that under-resourcing is also a gift sometimes because it forces you to be creative in how you use your resources. You can't just I think if we just honestly, I think if we had like a lot more people, or this company was a much more bigger size for given the product that we're trying to build, we would literally just, I think, not get creative on how to solve a certain problem.
And in many ways, you might just burn money very quickly and not actually solve the problem, or and it's a lot of that is in the getting creative. You're also in the weeds, and you're actually having to force yourself to stay in the problem than just throw money at the problem in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and psychologically, when you actually have a little bit of less resources, it builds conviction. It really tests your conviction, I think.
Right.
Let's be real here. It's, and when you're just a startup, you always have limited resources, and you're going to basically be running out of resources at some point, or you have some gap in resources, or business doesn't maybe go as fast as maybe you like, or maybe hires don't work out or anything like that. There's so many things that can go wrong. And part of it is, are you convicted? Do you really believe in what you're doing? Do you believe in the people that you're working with? That all comes into play. And so me as a founder with you is how do we shape this culture? How do we shape the business? How do we shape the message we want to bring out? Not just on the product side, but the kind of company we want to build, the kind of messaging we want our users to know, and how do we invite them alongside our journey as well in this process. And
one of the things that I really do appreciate that you said in kind of the company culture of it all is obviously us as founders and leaders, our biggest thing that we can do for our company is making sure that we build the right team.
Yep.
And, everybody has their own kind of way of doing that and how they want to structure their team and how they do hires. And we're not always just looking to hire for the sake of hiring. It's birth out of real need. Once we feel like we've reached a certain capacity in a certain area, and it's we're growing and we really do need to do the hire, then it's okay, absolutely, then will we make the move for the next hire. But one of the things that you said that I think is what's profound is the idea of the thinker and the doer. And sometimes that's two different people, but it's almost if you can feed the thinker in a right way and give them the autonomy to actually do the thinking. And if they are a great executor as well, I think to your point, we are a startup. We aren't, just swimming in resource, and any startup, you're really just starting to in any startup, I would say maybe a good majority of them, the idea or what you want to achieve is always more than the resource that you have. If you're in any kind of ambitious that's going to be true whether you got $1 million of funding or $50 million in funding that. If you're building conviction, right, hopefully that is true, that and then you're managing it along the way to make sure that it still works out. But that thinker, and we talked about this a lot internally about that leadership kind of position, and also the problem solver, that if you can feed that properly, I think that's how you accelerate a lot of the stuff that we're able to do that maybe other companies in our kind of same position aren't able to do, the stewarding a lot with a little. Has a lot to do with, I think, the way that we've set up culture around allowing people to be independent thinkers. It's not that they're always going to get it right, but at least we give them the room to think, to try, to fail, to actually do it, versus micromanaging every part of the business. And it's no, it's got to be this way.
No, that's so true. And I think it's part of it is how to create a culture where people aren't afraid of failure. I think that's actually a really big piece of how to enable people. I think people they don't take the action a lot of times because they're afraid of failure, or afraid of how to look, or afraid of all that stuff. And I think part of our job as leaders is to make people comfortable with that.
Yeah.
That no, they don't. They're not going to be punished necessarily for making a mistake, or doing something wrong, but more like gently corrected here and there,
Yeah.
and then just move forward.
It's so true. Yeah. Because in any other case, I'm sure with most people, it's not a bad way of doing it. Like you're hiring based on a resume or what they've done before. But I think a lot of how our hiring has gone, and you should never marry potential. So I don't mean this in the way of like, you just have to give everybody a chance. But it's almost like, I think we're able to see things in that thinking and problem solving like practice that we have been able to give people opportunities that they necessarily didn't have before, but we've just been able to identify like very key things in people that have allowed us to. It doesn't always work, like like anything.
Trial and error.
But the batting average, I feel like, has been really good, and it's one of those things that I feel like has become like uniquely a superpower for us. I think in how we've been able to like be so nimble but so powerful, like in the like effectiveness and approach. And it stems from us, like, to just brag on you a little bit, like you are a great leader, obviously, because and even like what most people probably don't know is that you were in a really great paying job and you left a job to go start a startup that like wasn't going to just pay you immediately. And that takes a lot of craziness, a lot of conviction, obviously. But not only that, like I think the effectiveness of the leader and the conviction of having people follow you is such a crazy like thing to think of. Like, we both have like examples of like people that we've worked with in the past that are now like a part of our startup. But that really shows like, I think the effectiveness of like a great leader, that this person wants to like follow you into this new thing, into the trenches, into this venture. And, obviously a lot of our like tech, it comes from a pipeline and a relationship building that you've done for like years, like in the past. But it also does feel like that that's trickling down, like our lead engineer and all these like different people, like they probably haven't done the level of maybe expectation or commitment or leadership position that we've given to allow somebody to architect something or to build something in a way that like they've just been instructed to in the past versus like they're now like actually using maybe a slightly different part of their brain to like actually like come up with the plan, come up with the idea, and also then iterate, like, like go back and forth with you. Like, do you have like ethoses when you think about stuff like that?
Yeah, no,
like,
I totally do. Like, I have like a very deep ethos about a lot of these things, but I don't know if it'll fit in the podcast.
Right.
I think most people want ownership and autonomy, like many people do, right? Like, I think if they have this talent that they have like embedded in them, they want to be able to take full ownership of that. And I think there's a lot of like hidden traps, like in leadership, personally, that can undermine that. Very clearly. It's like when you're micromanaging, that's an example, right? Basically you're conveying, not necessarily the micromanage, but you don't trust this person when you micromanage, right? That is like a convey, and they feel that like lack of trust. Or when you tell them everything that they're trying to have to do, like, and spell it out for them, that also is conveying lack of trust. And people can feel your lack of trust before your words.
Totally.
And I think part of it is, how do you learn to build that trust over time? And how do you help give them the courage to kind of take risk and also come up and express their ideas and to kind of build confidence in this area, especially when they're starting. I think when a person has gone through enough experience, they start developing this. But if they're newer, if they don't have that kind of experience, it takes time to build. And so I kind of like the analogy. I've like read a lot through like how sports psychology works, like the really great coaches who coached Olympians or who've coached other people. And I'm like, oh yeah, how do they really like get the best out of, like, because they're not like more talented than the Olympian, a lot of these coaches, right? They're just there to but they help be the best. And part of it is it's very simple. It's, first of all, give them trust, like genuine trust, like really trust their talent, really trust what you brought them in for, and actually communicate that to them. You have to communicate that very, very clearly to them, that I trust you in this area, and I want to see you thrive in these specific areas, because that's why we brought you on, and that's why you're here. They just need to hear that, and they don't hear it once. They have to hear it like over time, like consistently over many, many cycles. And then the second thing is then just give real-time feedback. Open up space for them to be able to be comfortable with bringing you their ideas, bringing their strategies, and then just give them genuine feedback. Not like saying you're wrong, but just giving them like the right framework, the right perspectives, and just helping them see these pieces. And then if let's just say they really are going off course, is really give them guidance. Because I think being nice is actually doing a disservice to them too. It's you need to be kind but firm with certain ways. So let's just say they're like kind of falling short in a certain area, which is very common. And then you would say, hey, I want you to kind of address these or look at these specifics. I think this is where you can actually make the gaps, like fill in these gaps. And this is possible strategy of how you can approach it. And then give them that opportunity to kind of work through that. And I think over time, you learn that people really learn to trust you once they start realizing that you're not out to get them while you're just not putting unnecessary pressure on them. Yeah, it's like a weird balance of pressure, I think. It's something, it's an art, not a science, in my personal opinion. But it really does hinge on trust. Your goal is, as a leader, is to help build trust between both parties. And you have to be very mindful of what is eroding that trust. Because sometimes it's something that you're doing too,
Right.
And you have to be very careful about maybe not careful, but just mindful throughout the things of your situations, your interactions of like, how am I undermining his trust in me or her in me? And how are they undermining their trust? I have trust in them. And then you guys have to have that dialogue. And the more you get, more openness that can happen there. In my opinion, it always just gets better.
You said something very profound, and the key term there, I think, is erosion, because erosion happens over time. It's not like a flip of a switch and then they don't trust you most times, like if you are, you have the right character. But sometimes it's the things that you don't even realize that you may or may not be doing, and then over time could erode trust. How do you combat erosion of that? Like, what does that look like for practices?
I think the first step is self-reflection. Quite frankly, you should always be thinking about this, especially when you're in a leader. You're not always going to get it right. Leaders aren't perfect. We're all flawed humans. And I feel like for me, at least for my personal way of doing it, is I'm thinking about it all the time. Like I'm like thinking about the interactions. I'm thinking about my conversations. I'm thinking about how I message something to someone. I think about how they message something back to me. What did they really mean? Like it's always ongoing in my head, like on the background. Like I don't shut it off. And I think that's where you start building the sensitivity to what's happening, right? It's something you have to desire. It's not glamorous. People think, oh, just because I'm a leader is sometimes glamorous, but it sucks, quite frankly, because I have to think about what their problem is when it's not something like, I'm not like, and they're not even telling me either, right? So you have to kind of infer a lot. And then if I can't infer, I have to go now have dialogue and openness with them too, right? In the process. But I think that's part of the process of being a leader. It's just as similar as people building their craft. This is the craft of leadership. It's really learning how to listen, learning how to build trust. Learning how to self-reflect in a lot of ways. I think leadership is more about self-reflection than anything else. How to adjust your own personality, how to adjust, not personality, but your own style to the situation, how to adjust your communication so that the message lands with people. I think that's a very important part of the puzzle.
I like what you said. There's a lot of obviously good about being a leader, but then there's also a lot of sticky parts. Like dealing with people is always messy. It's not and this could be broadly, it doesn't have to be about people, but what does failure look like to you in saturation? Where do you feel this, if this happened, I feel like a failure, or maybe you don't have to feel like a failure, but
a permanent failure or just temporary failure? Well, what's your,
maybe even temporary, if you hear a comment or you see this, or you don't feel like it's going a certain way,
So a failure for me is conflict left unresolved. So it doesn't have to be overnight kind of resolution, but if it's lingering tension and that has not been addressed, either by either party or anyone involved, I would say that's a failure on my part, especially as a leader. I don't care who caused it. I don't care who the reason is. I don't care even if it involves me. If there was some conflict that was around that was not addressed, And the resolution could be like a breakup. That's also a very fair resolution.
Sure, yeah, that's an okay resolution as much as it sucks, but it's true. It's like there's almost like a stinging nature to something that's like unresolved.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a point about erosion, right? I think erosion is actually a very like deep cut. Like you don't notice until over time. And to me, a failure is yes, unresolved conflict. Another failure is somehow we've devolved into a team where egos are like combating each other left and right. I think there's a difference between healthy, productive arguments versus egoic arguments, and I think most people could tell the difference. And it's, I don't know how to describe it, but it's very clear when it's one based off ego and everyone's just trying to be right, or they're just trying to be like hold on to their position versus are you actually listening? Are we actually thinking about the bigger picture? Are we actually trying to have some level of empathy, with the other person involved? And it's, to me, I think that's like a failure if we did not set up our culture that way. And it just became a very big ego battle across the entire spectrum. I think a third failure is we failed the customer. At the end of the day, we would have, for the customer, they're trusting us with their finances in a lot of many ways. And when our tech is not like at the quality and standard of what is needed for finance, I do consider that a failure. Albeit a temporary failure, because I think we can fix it, but it is a failure, and we do our best to try to really address that. And I guess the fourth thing is we didn't build a culture where people really wanted to grow in this company. I think if we didn't set up this company well enough, I mean, right now we're still very small, but when momentum hits or when there is kind of a growth in business and scale, you want people to really care of wanting to grow in such company, right? So I think about that a lot, like when we get to a certain scale. So totally.
It's interesting. Like mine feels so stupid compared to like what your like feelings of failure look like. I feel like when somebody or a customer emails or messages, or maybe I see it through the grapevine, that they felt like the product was too hard to use.
Oh yeah, that's actually a real failure too. Yes.
I weirdly like take that personally, and it like I feel like such a failure that like, oh, I would think it's obvious, or I feel like I obsess over it, and it's that's the thing that keeps me up at night. Weirdly enough, is like I'm like recreating the scenario in my head of what that person was going through to like get to a certain place or stop, or maybe not continue with the app because they felt like conceptually this was going to be too hard to learn or too like hard to use or something like that. Like just recently we had somebody that emailed us and said, like, how do you create a new project without a template? And I'm like, oh, like to me, it's so obvious. And I feel like such a failure that this person doesn't realize it or
you take it personally almost,
I do take it personally. It's like, oh my gosh, like it's so sad. Like, not that I'm angry at them. I'm more angry at myself around like, because, and it's one of those things like where you feel like you're like maybe failed at something, you also feel very validated when you get the praise in that particular area about something too, right? Like it's kind of like it's really it's like two sides of the same coin sometimes when you like put like maybe identity or like value into something that sometimes you can feel both things. So when somebody praises the app or like just says, oh my gosh, like I just hopped right in and in 5 minutes I started like, going. And it's like, yes, like so much validation.
I would love to ask you this question. What do you see then is like, because we know we get mixed reviews, right? Like someone says, this is the easiest thing. This is so intuitive. This is this. And you got someone saying, oh, this is so difficult. How do you balance between the two points of feedback? Emotionally?
It's so interesting. Like a philosophy that I think I took, and I never knew I was a product person, but like I definitely do think that we lead by product growth. We care about product a lot. And so a lot of how product grows sometimes is feedback, right? Like you're like, but one of the things that I remember hearing early on in our journey was, I think it was a quote by Henry Ford, where he said, if I listen to just the customer, like people,
Mhm.
And the Model T or cars wouldn't exist. We would just have faster horses.
Yeah, right. Yep,
Because that was the literal feedback that I think
yep,
people were giving, right? Like,
yep,
I need my cart or whatever it was
yeah,
at the time, or that,
yeah,
that my horse needs to go faster, or my cart needs to go faster, or
yep.
whatever. And I feel like that's not where true innovation like lies.
That's right.
And so we are constantly hearing that, right? Like, for good or for bad, like, we welcome feedback, and it's something that is a strong part of our ethos, is to like get the feedback.
Yeah,
But my challenge constantly to us and the team, and but to myself, is that if they are touching on something, there probably is a real problem there. So we should
yeah,
like keep ear close to the ground around like this particular thing that people are talking about. Or if you get enough of that feedback, it doesn't mean that their answer or their feedback is the solution
yeah,
to that particular product, but it's absolutely signaling
yeah,
something. And then out of that, kind of picking and cherry picking like different philosophies, I guess, or like of different great builders and leaders. Steve Jobs, on the other hand, was very against listening to feedback.
yep,
He
yeah,
just did not like care what other people thought. He
yeah,
cared most about what he thought was the great
yeah,
product, or like what he wanted to build, what he wanted it to look like, and what he wanted to feel like. And he built
yeah,
a company and culture and people around it that like really embodied his vision.
yeah,
And I feel like we're somewhere in the middle, or I feel like I feel somewhere in the middle, where like I love the feedback, but I also feel like we have such a strong conviction around like what good product should
yeah,
feel like.
yeah,
And that's iterative. Obviously, we build, we test, we put
yeah,
it out there. And so, as much as it's one of those things that, yes, it keeps me up at night and I feel like a failure, but it's also what's fueling me to
yeah,
like continue to build that better thing, or to
yeah,
make that button like work better, like look better, or whatever it might be.
yeah,
Because ultimately, I think we're trying to build something that is very enterprise level tools that should have taken a degree, or like 3 months to like learn.
yeah,
And we're really trying to, what we say, prosumerize it,
yep,
where hopefully a small tutorial or quickly playing around with it can like
yep,
unlock a whole new like way of like being able to do it. And I think that's, for most people, change is scary. Like
yeah,
with anything, you're comfortable most with what you've been using, especially when you're like dealing with a lot of money.
yeah,
And so that's the constant challenge, and that's the constant, like, I feel like for us is like that we're trying to like build more powerful features and still make it easy to use, which
yeah.
is not always true with enterprise software.
No. You enterprise software is like has as many as bells and whistles as you can,
Yeah.
and there's no real rhyme or reason to how these bells and whistles come together.
Yeah.
Whereas pros consumer apps generally are sometimes oversimplifications
Right.
of a product, and so we're kind of in this middle, what you call prosumer. It's where you have to be powerful enough, but somehow have rhyme and reason at the same time.
Yeah, totally.
To your product, and that's what makes this challenging. And I totally agree with you. And I would just love to add a comment to you what you said about Steve Jobs. And I think like there's always a kind of misconception sometimes that Steve Jobs was like it's always my idea, it's my guy.
Yeah,
But if
like
you
he's
actually watch
arrogant
some
or
of it,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
But if you actually watch his interviews of what he says, he always says it's actually a lot about the team and about
Yeah.
like how his team gave a lot of ideas and also disagreed with him a lot.
Right.
And those are the ones he actually respected the most.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I
In the
think he
process.
does. He built a team around
Yeah.
people that he respects to be able to
Yes.
do that.
Yeah.
Like I
And
think it is a lot of it.
And so in some ways that is like a lot of feedback. And I totally touch on your point where, at the end of the day, feedback can give you incremental, evolutionary like improvements. But if you're trying to do something that's somewhat prime paradigm shifting for a specific area, that doesn't come easy because everyone's not going to, because if it was that obvious, then, people would have built it already. Or
Right. Exactly. Yeah. If it was obvious, people would have built it. And I think some of the coolest things that we've built have come from like, we thought this was a good idea, not necessarily that like, a customer saying Movie Magic has this, why don't you have that? Like, I don't think that's been like some of our cooler stuff, while we are trying to like, adhere to certain like things that people are used to. It's still kind of trying to like think outside of the box, that like that there's paradigm shifting things that like maybe you're used to in a certain part of your world in tech, but then when you come to like your work or your film or your production, it's almost like it's like this box that like people have artificially created as like this is the way something is supposed to be or happen. And I think that's the beginning of the like question, right? Like why is this box exist? Why does it have to be that way? Is there a better way? And that's kind of like, you know, the snowballing of what gets you into these places, or at least for us, building saturation had a lot to do with that. So it's a great question. I feel like that's kind of what I felt like it was for me. I'd love to hear maybe like some of your like hot takes on like just what's happening in the world in tech, and whether it goes against or for like, you know, whatever's happening. You look so young, so it's very deceiving to I think most people. Like I look older than you, and like the amount of gray hairs that I have, and you're like, you know, a decade like, you know, more in experience than I have. You've seen, I'm sure, different technological like innovations, revolutions. And it sounds like you've been a part of it early on, like, you know, like when the internet was starting, kind of, you know, building to where we exist now. And you were even like in a lot of ways on the forefront of like mobile and like some of these things that are happening, right? Like mobile was like I would say like a defining, there's like internet that was like one defining moment of like tech history and like what people have been able to do. The next one that I think people would like logically say is mobile, as like as a way of like increasing like tech development scope, distribution, even. And even in mobile was like the App Store, right? Like that is what like really like got a lot of people that may never have gotten into tech before and started building apps that we wouldn't have necessarily like thought about or whatever. And it feels like now like there's this new wave, obviously in AI, and in the middle of that, AI used to exist in machine learning and stuff like that. What can you kind of talk about it from like maybe insider baseball a little bit of like how paradigm shifting maybe like the time that we're in right now?
That's a really good question.
And like, you know, like I would love to look back at this one day, because I'm sure it's going to even change and be different. But like, can you just talk about like that, like the paradigm shift that we're in right now?
Okay, I guess before I talk about it, maybe I should talk a little bit about the previous paradigm shift.
The histories, I love that.
Of like what at least I feel is like how the tech industry has evolved. And so, you know, like obviously computers came first from mainframes, then it went to personal computers. The whole Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, you know, all that kind of era where they really made PCs mainstream was a big revolution in sort of basically, I think Steve Jobs' metaphor was it was a bicycle for your mind. It just made the human so much more efficient. You have the power of computational power right at your fingertips, essentially. And then, you know, that obviously evolved into the internet in 2000s, which basically allowed you to connect all these very highly powered bicycles for the human mind together. And so that kind of amplified the human connection across the world. So you had the internet from 1995 to 2010, right? And that like birthed social media, where we discovered like how to really connect with, like there were basically no more boundaries of communication. And then you had mobile, which basically enabled you to take this bicycle right into your pocket. You know, you have this powerful computer that you can just basically access anywhere, any place, anytime, 24/7. And that basically built the distribution and the portability of a computer there. And so now you fast forward now to today, right? Where we're here in the age of AI. And, you know, I think for AI to actually come about, it would really relied on one, big data, high enough computational power. So it really was birthed from all the previous paradigms that were built. You needed a lot of data. You needed a lot of computing power. And, you know, the way I think about AI, like here's sort of the metaphor I would give, or the kind of an analogy is in computing, we have this idea of functions, you know, or APIs even. Let's say APIs are like a form of a function. You have very strict input, you have very strict output. And what AI basically does is, okay, I'm going to give you a tool now that can have very wide flexible input and very wide flexible output that basically mirror the human way of thinking. Before, it used to mirror the way like humans, I mean, computers thought, but now you have this mirror of this input that is very, think of any human language, anything, computing code, even art, anything, is that is the breadth of your input. And then your output is very, very broad too. And so if you think of the kind of this neural network as like this function of translating this very wide input to this very deep output, that is very powerful, as a thing. And so what it boils down to is, before you used to write APIs, for example, that would help you supercharge some workflows or accelerate some automations and all that stuff. Having these like this like little tool that can do way more on the input and output is you're basically supercharging workflows like left and right. There's going to be an efficiency. There's going to be a human intelligence to it. You can replicate a level of human intelligence across the board. I just think of a lot about, what humans do. You can start modeling that and simulating that across any sort of product or any sort of infrastructure, any sort of business, any sort of operation. And it's going to transform every single industry. Like there's no way that like, and you just look at the evolution of agents, where if I think of a lot about how, a lot like these models, when they first came out, it was all about generation. They say, I could generate text. I could generate an image. I could generate a video. But now it's become a point where they can become autonomous agents where, hey, I am able to operate tools. I have some memory. I'm almost like a human or a coworker. And I could just live in your system and just do what a normal human would do. And I think that is very groundbreaking and paradigm shifting. The world is moving towards that very fast. And I don't think it's going to slow down. I think it's just going to keep going, and there's going to be an exponential explosion up to a certain point.
Yeah, it's crazy to kind of think about like, and maybe this was like a feeling to a certain generation with every technological advancement. I feel like this is one of the few where I'm like an adult now going through like a huge, technological, it's kind of like, when people talk about like the '08, like housing market crash, like, and they're like, they were in it or they were in that, or now like it maybe in our generation, it was like the pandemic.
Yes.
And then like, this feels like like another, and maybe it was kind of like around the same time too. But with what's happening in AI, it's just, it is such a paradigm shift for like how it's disrupting every single part of maybe life. For humans moving forward. And more so because of like, it feels like it's like maybe breaking like whatever Moore's law or like what you think of like how fast like things are developing. Cause you thought certain things, even when you hear AI and you've heard of AI even beforehand, that like maybe that was like, 20, 30 years, like, away, and in certain respects have now been like, every month there's like a new, like crazy development that's happened. That,
even the last 6 months, you're just like, I swear, like the beginning of this year, I was like, oh, okay, this is AI. And now where we're at right now, it's insane. Like
it's insane. Yeah. Like, how do you think about, like, I think about this a lot. I was having this conversation with somebody just recently, and he like leads AI at like one of these like startups. But as I'm becoming a new parent, there's like this thought around like, how do you raise kids in like
the age of AI?
The age of AI, right? Like everybody's talking about the age of iPad and raising kids, and it's a little reactionary when you like talk about it that way. But like, if we're like, obviously like, you have like, had a kid in the last year and
that's a really good question.
Like, do you think about like this paradigm shift in a way that like is either fearful or exciting? And if whatever lens that you see it through, how do you think about like having that conversation with like your child about like, what do you do now in the future? It's probably not what you thought your child was maybe going to do in the future, in terms of work or passions or whatever it might be?
That's a really good question, because like both of us just had sons. It's
Yeah.
like literally they're like a year old or less. And so that is a very good question. It's something I think about a lot too, because, both being new parents, it is a very paradigm shifting thing. And yeah, we did talk about the age of iPad, sorry. And it was definitely very changing for those kids. But now we have the age of AI, which is going to be very changing. But to answer your question more directly is, personally, I'm an optimist. I'm very excited about it. And I think I just like reflect on our own work of how we've leveraged AI. And AI has really become a tool. Like some people use it for like just generation, maybe some people use it as an efficiency tool. But really where AI becomes its most powerful, like if you want to use it enough, is that it is a tool to shape your thinking. You can actually use it to bounce ideas off. Think about a collaborator. Think about someone like a Jarvis, that you can actually like kind of explore ideas, explore new ideas. And so I think educational wise is actually going to shift the way kids are going to learn. And actually that's more fundamentally human. Like before, like a lot of learning was like maybe rote. You have a teacher, he just talks to you and then you absorb information, right? And maybe you do assignments and you do homework or you do whatnot. That's how at least we grew up. Yeah. And but the way I think it's going to shift is just going to be much more interactive, like if applied correctly. The kids have the opportunity now to learn anything really fast. They have information and thinking rolled up in one right at their fingertips. And, if they have a question, well, let's go ask AI. Let's actually talk about it. Let's work through the nuances and angles of what you're trying to learn. And so you can actually transform it into a much more powerful tool for learning and a much more interactive tool for learning. And it's funny because recently I was actually I just came across this like another like educational startup or something that was trying to leverage AI, and they've been showing that the results for learning are way faster with AI with kids.
Right. I bet.
Yeah, so if you apply it right, you teach them, they can actually ask questions, they can actually kind of work through their misunderstandings. It's such a powerful tool. And I feel like our next generation is going to have this opportunity to something that we couldn't, use to learn.
It's so true. Like I think about that a lot, like even like the generation with my parents and me, like I don't necessarily think I'm smarter, but I've grown up in an age where it was so easy to access information that I've kind of trained a certain type of like thought or practice to how to approach a problem. Right. Like my immediacy is to like go Google it or to like go like find it online or whatever. Where as my parents' generation, like would have been more like maybe there was problem solving aspects of it, but maybe that's not the first place that they go, and it would take a little bit longer to like maybe solve the problem, or maybe in a mindset or way that they would have known or to do something. It feels like that's going to be more so true even with like the next generation. Like, and I don't know what the answer is, but it's like as AI will probably do what you're talking about, which is like accelerate like humans level of like thinking and also like execution. It feels like also there's a lot of room for disruption for like maybe a lot of jobs that were created.
Oh yeah, the economy. That's actually a really good like how's the economy going to shift? Yeah,
like I don't know. Like when I think about like that, it's like is my kid going to go to college?
I asked the same question.
Right? Like are they going to have like a normal job? Like it just I don't know. Maybe I'm like I'm optimist, but then also I have a lot of questions for like how this plays out in terms of like the mass disruption that like I think is about to come. And I'm so excited for it. And obviously we are benefiting from it and we're using it and we're trying to like, try to make the most of it. But it's like, wow, like, so like, everybody found out too late that they were like addicted to their iPads, right? The kids or whatever, like, and they have like shorter attention spans and stuff like that or whatever from it. And I saw this crazy, like, I don't know, I don't want this to be fact, but like I saw recently that Meta's AI like security policy or something like that leaked recently. And I hope this is not like fake.
Yeah.
But apparently they were even, there was certain things that like were prompted or they allowed that the AI, the LLMs to do to interact with children. Oh. And it was so scary. I don't even want to say it out loud.
Really?
Like some of the things that they were okay with. Like one of them like was like allow for children to have romantic conversations with the LLM.
Really?
And it was like a part
policy?
of the documentation that was like approved by like the head of like AI security and all the like different people that
Oh my gosh.
were involved. And
Yeah.
that is unfortunately sometimes in this world of like commerce and technology, like you are trying to make it addictive. You are trying to make it useful.
Right, yeah.
You are trying to make it like that your thing is the thing that like people come back to.
Yeah, you want people to be, you're optimizing for engagement.
Commerce.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's anything commerce, right? Like you want the person to buy more of the thing that you're selling or giving.
Yeah.
And some of the ethical things and some of the, so it's just interesting, like, you know, where all of it is headed. But yeah, it's I remain an optimist, and I think I want to like live out of optimism and not out of fear. But it seems like there's a lot more that we'll have to be thinking about. And I'm excited to, you know, learn what that looks like. But just kind of curious.
Yeah, no, yeah. To me, like it's like every kind of paradigm shift with technology feels like technology at the end of the day is neutral, in my opinion. It's how we as humans apply it for good or for bad, and it creates a certain interaction model or structure or way of interacting with other people or the systems that create bad and good. And I could definitely see AI being abused, like how you are kind of alluding to, and even for control or for like certain ways of like advocating for something that maybe not ethical. Very can be under the hoods. And I think it's a brave new world for everyone, for the world in this.
Philosophically, when I was talking with that guy, he was much older than us and has now kids, like, you know, getting to a certain place where like they are going to like maybe like start to like pick what they want to do for their future and all that stuff. He was saying like he obviously doesn't know. Nobody really can know what the future holds. But one of the things that he's trying to train his kids in now is conceptually what it means to not just use AI, but to manage AI. And that's kind of how he distinguished it, because it's easy to become a consumer of the thing. But like, how do you like in the future where maybe most of the labor force is like AI or, you know, or AI agents or whatever it might be, like, how do you maintain control and management and being able to dictate? Like, I don't know if that's the right answer, but that was kind of what he said to me.
That's his like perspective.
That's what kind of made me go down the rabbit hole of thinking about it.
No, like, I have a slightly different perspective in the sense that I do believe that AI can be a co-creator with people. And I'm more of the optimist if like it has the potential for co-creation. Meaning that, I mean, we use it in our own kind of line of business of how to like think through ideas of how to do that. And there's just this level of co-creation that we just never really got. Because before you have to like, you know, go talk to a whole bunch of like experts that you might not even have access to. And now you have access to that. And you're like, whoa, this is like really cool to like understand like how these things work that you traditionally never had like access to. And so, and so having this co-creation process is, I think, the most optimistic view. But I do kind of hear your friend who's like, hey, you know, it can cross a very dangerous territory, and then we have to make sure that we leverage, you know, and manage it appropriately and all that. Just like anything,
like
like computers and iPads and all that stuff.
Simon, I'm really grateful for you doing this with me. Looking forward to see how people react to this, but we should do it again sometime. I think it would be fun to kind of give people kind of like, you know, peeks and windows into who Simon is and what he's working on. So thanks for joining me on the pod, and looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah, it's been fun getting out of my cave.
Go back to the cave. No, I'm kidding. Thanks for tuning in to Produced With. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. Produced With is brought to you by Saturation. If you're a filmmaker, check out saturation.io, the all-in-one production budgeting, payments, and actualization tool. If you like this episode, subscribe to the show, leave us a review, or share it with someone who needs to hear it. Special thanks to our producer Eugene Wade and editor Stephen Gray for helping shape the conversation and making it sound as good as it does. And hey, check out the show notes. Join the community and find us online.